Well, welcome to Good Distinctions. For our bonus episode, I have with me today Raouf Zaki, a filmmaker, Egyptian-born, I believe, and living in Massachusetts. I read your bio just before we record. That's a little bit of biographical details, but Raouf, if you could just introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Will. God bless you, and God bless your listeners. And I'm an independent filmmaker living in Massachusetts, born and raised in Egypt. I came here when I was 17 and settled in the U.S., where I have been making independent films that are eye-openers on social justice issues, as well as starting to delve into the faith-based, arena. I made a documentary about an Egyptian soldier in a platoon. I don't know what that is.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not sure either. If you could just go back to the beginning of the phrase and.
That's crazy. A lot of things like that have been happening. One time on the John Weston show, a thunderstorm came and cut off. I didn't get the email about the show. Like this thunderstorm happened right before. That was last week. Anyway, so I've been making films about important social issues, and I'm trying to bridge the gap always in my films, the Middle East and the U.S., especially in the youth department. So I made a film called Santa Claus in Baghdad, where it was hailed by the New York Times as a small miracle in filmmaking because we were able to turn Boston to Baghdad to film here. Even though it's a narrative film, the Middle East Policy Council and Harvard University really were impressed by the film and developed a study guide for it, and it was distributed to hundreds of schools in the country and colleges, and became a wonderful film to discuss in social studies classes, along with the study guide that Harvard created. From there, I began to focus recently in the last few years on faith-based films. I made a short documentary that went viral about an Egyptian soldier whose platoon was attacked by ISIS in Egypt, and everyone was killed except him. And Jesus appeared to him and saved him when he had about 2 bullets in his head and 5 other bullets in his body. And this short documentary came with God's providence in a time where I couldn't believe how it worked. Like, we released it on social media and it just became viral because they had actually in Egypt were broadcasting a series on the heroism of the Egyptian army, but they declared him dead. And when people saw the documentary, they complained to the TV station and said, well, the guy is not dead. The guy is alive. And here's the proof. And they apologized, and they invited him on the same television station where he gave an incredible testimony. So in a recent trip to Egypt in 2022, I was working for a wonderful organization called Coptic Orphans. For the listeners who don't know what Coptic is are Egyptian Christians. They've been there in Egypt since Christianity entered Egypt through Saint Mark, the apostle, in Alexandria. And at some point, Christianity flourished in Egypt and massively, and monastic life also started in Egypt through the Desert Fathers and Mothers. And Saint Anthony the Great, who was the first monk, and Saint Paul the Hermit. And the world's first Christian monastery is the monastery of Saint Anthony. And so there's major history there. And there's also the Holy Family escaped to Egypt for 3 years, as we all know. And we have amazing sites to visit there. And in any case, around 2015, there was an event that the whole world witnessed when ISIS infiltrated Libya after the fall of Gaddafi. And they took over several parts in Libya where they terrorized people, as we know, and they took over several towns and went after minorities and even moderate Muslims, and tried to have everyone abide to the caliphate and live by the rule. And, we recall the days, unfortunately, of televised beheadings. And during that time, there were about 20 Christians from Egypt, 20 Coptic men, mostly in their 20s, a couple of them with families in their 30s, hardworking older brothers in a family from Elminia, from Egypt and Elminia, and where they could not find work in Egypt, so they left to Libya with incredible faith. Very poor but very humble. These are men who, just love the church, love Jesus, and were working there to support their families. Doing masonry work, carpenting, that kind of thing, and sending the money back home. Incidentally, they come from the same town where the Holy Family was in hiding for 6 months. So they're very proud of their heritage. And when they were working in Libya, there were warnings beforehand that there's danger. There is going to be persecution because ISIS took over. They might be martyred in the name of the faith, and they were okay with it. And the proof in point is ISIS captured them for 40 days and tortured them, and dressed them up in orange jumpsuits, and took them on a beach on the Mediterranean in Libya, in the city of Sirte. And they beheaded them one by one. But the most incredible thing is that they walked in peace. They didn't scream or beg for mercy. When they knelt down, seconds before they were martyred, they were singing psalms. They were looking up at the sky. They were in complete grace, and a lot of them said the word, "Jesus Christ be with me." This is the phrase that inspired Pope Francis, when he saw the video, to canonize them in the Catholic Church last year. And they were celebrated this year, the first anniversary, on February 15th. And it was a moment that ISIS thought that they were going to terrorize the world with it, but the world stood as a witness to their incredible faith and resilience. A church in Egypt was built to commemorate them, and eventually their bodies were sent back to Egypt to live in the altar of that church, and people visit by the thousands to take their blessings. And the widows of these martyrs and the mothers, they interviewed them, all of them, and incredible testimony of how each one of them says they forgive ISIS, they pray for them, and they thank them for what they did, because their sons are martyrs in the church. And this is unbelievable, to have this faith, to have modern day martyrs. And you hear about St. George, you hear about other martyrs in our church, but when you see it and witness it, it's something else. So what the terrorists did worked for the glory of God, and worked to, I believe, to strengthen our faith, especially in these times we live in, where I believe Christianity is persecuted worldwide. And so may their blessings come upon your viewers, and you can have a link, I'm sure, with Wikipedia to show their names, where they can ask for their intercession.
Absolutely.
This event, you wanna commemorate them, and their 10th anniversary is next year. So I was like, God help me, make a film about them. With the limited funds that I had last year, I decided to go ahead and make a short film, but I wrote it in a way that it could be expanded with the same actors into a feature film. So that I was like, okay, let me make the short film, whatever the budget I have. And miracles have happened during the filming, as well as a lot of battles that were just really, really heartbreaking, but God has intervened in every single step, thanks to him. We completed it successfully, and we're now seeking funding to go back to Los Angeles where we filmed it, using the same actors, God willing, in the next few months, and finish it into a film that will honor them and commemorate them and tell their story in 2025, the 10-year anniversary. And the film revolves around the story of the man from Ghana who was martyred alongside of them. There's mystery surrounding this martyr. Why was he beheaded by the leader himself, who was speaking on the video? Was there a personal vendetta? There are rumors that hint that it was a last minute decision. They weren't going to kill him, but they decided to last minute to do that. Why was that? So that we take creative license in the film and shed that story as the main story, and how his faith is intertwined with the martyrs and how he experiences heavenly fatherhood. So this pretty much the film, Son of the 11th Hour. People have come out, have donated what they can to our Kickstarter. Any amount is welcome. And there are, there's the Kickstarter, ravisionproductions.com/11th hour. Again, ravisionproductions.com/11th hour, and 11th is spelled numerically. 11 is spelled numerically. So I'm sure you'll put the link in the video. And after the Kickstarter is over, it's live until June 28th, we urge you to support the film. But after it's over, the same link will link to our website, where you can still continue to support us through the next few months. And we appreciate, again, any level of support. We've partnered with Coptic Orphans, a nonprofit organization. If you are in need of a tax-exempt seat, that you can email me at raouf@ravision.net. Again, raouf@ravision.net, and I can share details with you on how you can send your tax donation to them, but noting that it's for the film. But please email me to give you details on this. So that's pretty much where we are, and I thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thanks for going through that. The story of the Coptic Martyrs obviously came to my attention when it happened on the news. It was all over the news. But when Pope Francis, and you mentioned this, when Pope Francis declared these 21 Coptic Orthodox Christians to be martyrs and added them to the Roman martyrology, I was blown away. I can't think of another example where we have canonized saints who are not Catholic, which is very interesting, because there's a Coptic Catholic church, like one of the 24 Eastern rites of the church. So it's very, very interesting that the Pope made this move. I think it was the right move. I completely support it. It's very clear that these men died for Jesus Christ and for the faith. And it's beautiful to see the Pope sort of reach out in this way, ecumenically speaking. And I'm thrilled about the film. I saw the trailer, and I'll also be posting that in the show notes as well. And we'll make sure that people get all of the information. It's going to be just fantastic. The quality is great. The actors were, even in the trailer, I could tell they were superb.
Thank you.
And I'm thrilled to see this. I'm also very glad that I have no problem with documentaries, so don't take it wrong. But a feature film, I think, is going to reach people emotionally in a way that a documentary just can't. So I'm glad that you made that choice. And I guess the question that came to mind is why did you make that choice? Why a drama rather than a documentary?
I think I was researching, and through extensive research and phone calls and emails, I was connected to the lead investigator in Libya on the case. And, he shared with me some of the horrible details of how they tortured them and how they hung them from a door, through the night. Some of them, where their shoulders would be hanging from one side of the door and the rest of their bodies would be hanging the other side, and they would let them, cry and scream and hoping that they would deny Christ. But they didn't. And so, details like this, as horrific as they are, certainly are best portrayed through a recreation, through a drama, which is certainly fitting for this story. And we ask for to please pray for the film, because it's certainly, you're talking about martyrs, and you need all kinds of protection when you're making this film. We start the day with a prayer, but the power of prayer is incredible, and I believe they prayed quite a bit. There's the fact that some people were imprisoned with them for a day or two, because ISIS didn't just imprison them in the bottom of a government building where it was reported they imprisoned them, an abandoned government building that they took over, and they imprisoned daytime prisoners, and some of them witnessed their prayers, and some of them that were imprisoned with them got that blessing, and some of them were imprisoned but that had to leave, decided to just tell ISIS what they wanted to hear and survive. So there's that drama as well. How can anybody be robbed of their life when they're so young? Yet knowing and deciding that they're heading to him, and that to them was something they needed to come to terms with. And in itself, this is in itself the human drama, knowing that they're leaving their earthly existence and relying on God, who promised to be the father of the widows and orphans, and in His words. So relying on that is a testimony of their faith.
Well, and testimony certainly is the right word. For those listening who maybe don't know, the word martyr means witness, and these men certainly witnessed to the faith. I've had this conversation with my Catholic friends who say, if we were put up against the wall and tortured and made to be in these same situations, would we tell ISIS what they want to hear, like you said, or would we go to the end for Christ, knowing that our home is actually not of this world? And we all said very clearly, yes, we'd go to our death. We would be martyred. And with God's grace, obviously we don't hope that comes to us. But if it does, we want to be able to embrace it. We were talking about the movie. It's the Martin Scorsese film about the Japanese martyrs. And I haven't seen it. I refused to watch it because my friends told me about it. And they said, no, you need to watch the first 85% of the movie. It's fantastic. And I said, well, what's wrong with the last 15%? And they said, they totally cave and denounce Christ. I said, well, that's not accurate. And they said, no, it's not. And so it's interesting though, because obviously Martin Scorsese, who is a lapsed Catholic, he clearly has this desire in this that he probably can't even put into words for the religious, for Christ. I mean, he seems to be drawn to these religious themes, but then he takes it a completely secular, materialistic direction. And so it's very refreshing to see faithful Christians make these films like the one that you're making that will do justice to what these martyrs endured, because they were willing to go to their death knowing that it wasn't the end. And I think the testimony that you gave of their wives and their mothers and their siblings, that, you know, we forgive ISIS as well, that's something that comes from God. That's something that comes only through grace.
Amen.
I can't even imagine that.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And, you know, I think they also remind us that every day we're saying no to sin and we're taking our cross. We're also getting, in a very small way, a taste of what it is to be martyred. You know what I mean? Because it is that, you know, picking up our cross. And yes, 100%, a film about martyrdom needs to, you know, why would you make a film if it's now, you know, it can unfortunately cause the wrong message, which is certainly not what happened with them.
Well, fantastic. Well, I pray for this film, and we'll continue to do so, and for you and all those involved with it, that God will see it to its completion, and that people will be blessed by it.
Thank you, God.
And so the name of the film is The Son of the 11th Hour. And we'll make sure to put all of the notes in about where people can go, especially as Raouf said, go to the Kickstarter. It's live for at least the next 10 to 12 days if you're listening to it, to this episode when it was released. And if it is past June and you find yourself listening to this in July, still go to the website. There are other ways to support. And regardless, we can pray. You know, even if you're listening to this episode for the first time in 2028, God is outside of space and time. So pray for the film anyway. Yes. And pray that it continues to reach people. Because our God is much bigger than we can imagine. So, Raouf, any final words for the audience?
You know, may the blessing of the martyrs be with you and with your listeners, and may God, you know, grant us the funds to commemorate them, and not just the funds, but also the creativity and the energy and the right people to be involved in the film and for its release, and to have viewers worldwide be strengthened by their faith.
Amen. Well, thank you, Raouf. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Will. God bless.